Hey everyone, welcome back to the Marketing Share podcast. I'm Alec, and with me is my co-host Barb. In our most recent episode, we spent some time talking about how to build and leverage a community to further engage your customers or prospective customers. And that was the episode with Matt Hines, who's the host of the CMO Coffee Talk. And because I think we had such a really good conversation in that episode, and also because it seems like I am seeing the term and the idea of community crop up more and more in marketing conversations, like the terms community-led growth, community-led go-to-market. Just seems to be coming up more and more. Barb and I thought it would be great to just do a second dive into this topic. And we've got a great guest again for this conversation. Derek Weeks is here with us today. And Derek has actually written a book on building communities based on his experience doing that very thing. And so Barb, I'm going to flip it to you to tell us a little bit more about Derek, intro him, and then what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah. First of all, Derek is a friend of ours from CMO Coffee Talk. So it's really cool to have a colleague with us on the Marketing Share today. And I'm super excited because he's written this amazing book, Unfair Mindshare. And I love the name of the book because today in the world, it feels like I'm getting so many notifications. So it's not even money and space that we need more. It's actually mind share and attention that is the scarce commodity that we are so looking for today, right? And as marketers, we really need to bring that out and move from transaction in marketing to a relationship. So I think this book really takes us on a wild ride of how Derek has done this in a former role of his with a colleague. And he built actually a community of over 100,000 developer ops people for this book. And he takes us on this ride. So welcome, Derek.
Yeah, thanks, Barb, Alex. It's good to be here.
So, Derek, tell us a little bit about what prompted the book, why now, and how you kind of decided to get started with this.
Yeah, it's a good question. So if I think about it, throughout my entire marketing career, I've always tried to approach marketing from an outside-in perspective. I started early in my career as a product marketer, where you're hired to talk about and promote a product for a specific company. But I always went to the question of, well, who's the user? Why do they care? Like, what are people doing in their lives, and how is this relevant? And I had to start with those questions first to understand why the thing I was in charge of marketing actually mattered. And over my, couple decades of my career, I continued to expand on the approach that I took, the outside in approach. And I think I just got further and further out into what has become community-led marketing strategies that not just, hey, it's all about community, but it actually ties into how do you build your brand? How do you build your product, awareness? How do you build demand for an organization? But quite honestly, the timing of it was probably 9 months or so prior to starting to write the book. People were coming to me for advice, or I was talking to different members of my team about how to think and approach the marketing toward the products or the things that they were promoting for their business. And I always came back to this story of, you have to think about how to frame the thing that you're doing in a way that makes sense to your company and the market that you're pointing at. And I always concluded these conversations with, someday I'm going to write a book on this because it's just so clear in my head. And then unfortunately, I was laid off. And with layoffs, you have an opportunity to say, I'm going to, go out and find my next role, or I'm going to kind of take a moment to do something a little different. And this was the, moment where I said, I've been talking about writing this book. Maybe I should just not go out and look for another job, but sit down, spend a number of months writing the book, which has been a really fun journey to document and put on paper what I had learned over my career and the different experiences, and also including stories of others, throughout that.
Yeah, that's why they say, right, when one door closes, another one opens, right? Perfect
Yeah.
example, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Derek, in your book, one of the things I love about it is that you talk about a lot of different examples of communities. But of course, you also talk quite deeply about your own community that you built, All Day DevOps, right? So, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What sparked the idea for ADDO, All Day DevOps?
Yeah. So, All Day DevOps in 2016. I was in a company that sold tools to software development professionals as well as cybersecurity professionals. And we had spent, and I had personally spent, a ton of time in this market over the year and a half prior to us starting All Day DevOps, participating in the market, meeting people in the market, going to conferences or meetups within this community, and learning about that particular market. And in doing so, I was, part of it was marketing, part of it was educating and researching, for myself on who's the market, who are the personas that we're targeting, how do we best generate demand in this space. But what I had noticed, I've probably gone to 25 different conferences, meetups, or things in the industry, was the people that were there speaking were the same people, like just different cities. And the audience at the time, a meetup audience might be 20 people. The biggest conference in the space was maybe 700-800 people. And I just thought, for how many people are seeking knowledge in this space, these avenues aren't scaling. So what if we took an opportunity to get a number of our friends who were all kind of traveling city to city and bring them online and bring this knowledge to everyone else, make it free, make it accessible. It wasn't about vendor pitching. It was just about, how do we share the knowledge that all of us have with other people? And part of it, I told this story a ton of times, but we would meet, say, someone from Wells Fargo at a conference, and I'd say, "Oh, how many people are in your DevOps practice?" And they'd say, "Well, there's two of us in the DevOps, or there's two of us here, but there's, say, 700 of us in the DevOps practice at Wells Fargo. So there's two people at a conference and 698 that are not at the conference, not getting educated, and they have to rely on a trip report of like, oh, go back and watch, look at this slide deck or read my notes." It wasn't very efficient. So we kind of built this conference and community with the idea that we could serve the other 698 people, get them the information that they needed. And we had the idea when we started off was, I think 1,000 people would show up to this, which would be bigger than any other event that was going on at the time. And so we just put out the idea that we were going to do it. We didn't have a conference. We had no agenda. We had no speakers. And 300 people reached out to us and said, I want to register for that. And we're like, register for what? There's nothing yet. But as we put it together over like a 90-day period, it ended up 13,000 people registered for that first event, and effectively sparked the creation of that community. And then every year after that we did the conference and we did a lot of things in between, we would have 30 to 40,000 people a year participate in that community effort. So it was really like, in some ways it was catching lightning in a bottle. But it also played off of, this wasn't the first time that I did a community-led thing. I've been doing this sort of thing in different places for a while, but it was a little bit of right timing, but understanding how to approach it in the right way.
Yeah, when I read that in your book, it was amazing, right? You started out with trying to actually grow the access of it, right? Because you had all these people who hadn't really in person experienced that. And I thought that was a really great thought. How can I really increase the touches to those folks, right? And then you move this thing from 1,000 to 13,000 in the first few months, I mean, it was crazy. Anybody would be really wanting to get to that level of activity.
It was pretty crazy to be there at the time because we met that 1,000 goal like within about the first month, and we had literally nothing. Like we were putting up, like, come meet the speakers. We knew like 6 speakers, and then there were 6 organizers. We put the organizer pictures up too. Like, this is going to be a thing. But then people are like, I want the knowledge that is happening here. And we started off with a very simple brand promise for the community. That was, we were going online, so it was accessible to anyone with an internet connection. It would be free, so you didn't need any budget, travel, like conference fee, anything like that. And there were no vendor pitches. So you're not going to show up and hear like, oh, Derek's working at this company. We're going to hear pitches from this company all day. That was part of it. Just bring people together, get them to share knowledge, exchange knowledge with one another. And that promise, really paid off for everyone that participated in the experience.
Yeah, it was really customer first, right? Rather than company pitch, right? I like the unpitching strategy. That's brilliant.
And it wasn't even, I'll say it wasn't even customer first. It was market first. We didn't go to just our customers and say, we only want to invite you. It was literally, if you want to learn about this subject of modern software development, we're bringing together 60 people that are going to talk about it and share their experience that, are coming here, and no one's vendor pitching. Like, you're just going to get it straight from the people that are doing it. And I think that was super attractive, but also got us a really big audience. Like I tell people all the time, when you think about community, if you were to organize, let's say you're organizing a field marketing event in Austin, Texas, right? And you have an agenda where you have 8 people on the agenda, and it's your CEO, your CTO, your CIO, chief security officer, head of marketing, and 2 SEs. Oh, and then you add 1 or 2 of your own customers on the agenda. Or in Austin, you organize a field marketing event that has 8 speakers, maybe one of which is from your company, or maybe your company is the moderator, function, and you invite 8 people from the industry, not your customers, just people to share knowledge. Which one is going to have a bigger audience to it, right? And which one is going to have a bigger impact? Which one is going to be more authentic? Like, everyone's going to go to the second one. And that's part of, like, when you go out and take a community-led first approach, you can attract much bigger audiences to that, because they're looking for knowledge. They're not like, no one's looking for, let me buy your product. Not every day. You have to balance the two. But that's kind of, one way to think about it a little.
So that gets to kind of my next question, which is, in the book, you talk about the orbits, right? Because a lot of people are kind of wondering, where does this fit into the marketing mix, right?
Yeah.
So, we're very used to thinking about our product sale, right? Yeah. And our brand advertising and our brand marketing. And then this is community. I think a lot of people are kind of wondering, where does this fit into the mix, and how much can I invest in this versus my everyday pitching against my brand? That helped me a little bit understand it. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was really important when framing up community-led marketing. And the book, Unfair Mindshare, has the subtitle, A CMO's Guide to Community-Led Marketing in a Product-Led World. And part of that was trying to communicate and help people understand, when you do community-led marketing, it doesn't operate on an island in and of itself. Community-led marketing is part of an overall integrated marketing strategy where brand and product are part of an integrated motion. I think probably many of us or those listening or watching to this have seen community marketing with, like, oh, we hired an evangelist, and that evangelist goes out to all these events and, gives this great presentation on burnout. It has nothing to do with our product whatsoever. They have lots of friends in the industry, but like the marketing team back at home is like, what does that person do? Like, I know we employ them, but how are they helping us meet the company goals or, revenue goals or growth goals of the organization? And it's because it lives on this island. And so part of what I try to do in the book is explain, one, what is the community orbit, but what are the other orbits as well, and how to integrate those three as a CMO. So there are three orbits. The core is the product orbit. The second is the brand orbit. And the third is the community orbit. Now, for every CMO, marketing leader, marketing role out there, everyone is hired to work in the product and brand led orbits. You're talking about your products and you're talking about your company because you were hired to do that and people expect you to do that. And I'm not telling you any different. You know those orbits very well. Those orbits, if you look at the origin of those orbits, though, they are self-created. Your company organized those orbits, and every marketing effort in those, the narratives in those orbits, you control yourself. So you define the story. You talk about the product. They're your words. They're your voice. Your descriptions of what's going on, and your team does the work. If we look at the community-led orbit, and we go back to an example of something like all-day DevOps, we effectively had an idea that we were going to bring the part of the community together. The DevOps community already existed. We did not create that. But we said there's something in that community that's missing, that we can build a forum for people to come together. So we took that ownership and invited a few friends from the community to come with us, but we didn't control the narrative at all. We said, we're inviting 60 people in the first year. It was 180 people every year after that, 180 people to come and share knowledge. We didn't control that narrative whatsoever. The community was deciding what knowledge was important. We invited different people from the community to actually own the different tracks at the conference, where they would decide. It wasn't anyone from our company deciding what would be talked about there. And then there was a huge community built on Slack that discussed everything that was going on within this community and sharing knowledge and even exchanging information there. We didn't control that narrative. We didn't build any of the content for the conference. So in the years where we had 180 speakers, they were producing 180 pieces of content, 90 hours of video recordings, in a single day. We would help produce blogs about those things afterwards, but they were generating the content. They were generating the narrative. We were helping to provide the forum and also governing the brand promise. Like, why are you coming here and what can you expect? But at the same time, we were able to take concepts and activity from those forums and interactions and bring it into our product and brand led motions at the business. And I think we did that pretty effectively.
Yeah, Derek, I think two things came to mind when I was reading that part about the community led, because I think you did a great job of really explaining how the community fits into the marketing that we all know, right? It's like you said, marketers live and breathe product and brand stuff. We know that, right?
Yeah.
What is a little bit more not as well known is like, okay, we get the idea of community, and especially how like, okay, one of the things is like, hey, no pitching in communities, right? That was one of the big themes with Matt when we were talking about the reason that community is so successful is because, there's this hard rule of no pitching. It's like, well, if we're not pitching, what are we supposed to do as marketers? So I think you explained it really well. And two things came to mind when I was reading that. One term was word of mouth. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like the word of mouth is what you're looking for, and the community is where that word of mouth happens, right? And so I think that was one. The other thing that came to mind for me was dark social. And in case any of the listeners don't know or have heard of it, don't know what that is, right? Dark social is just this idea that as much activity as there is on social media, right? And you want that type of, obviously that type of positive social media commentary, but there's so much conversation that happens outside of social. It's the stuff that used to happen before there was any social media. And so now we just call that dark social. But community, I think, is where that type of conversation can be fostered, right? What's your take on that? Do you know where I'm going with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, dark social or dark funnels to me have always been like, that's how you say there's no attribution possible within these activities. Like there's just conversation, there's brand affinity that's being created in these communities and exchanges. But I'll take it back to like a kind of practical level. If we looked at something like CMO Coffee Talk that we participate in every Friday morning, we're on this call with other CMOs and just sharing and exchanging information and learning from each other and supporting one another. And 6 Sense and Heinz Marketing do a great job of hosting that community every week. And they also have part of their brand promise is no vendor pitching in that community. Now, let's go back to that Austin field marketing event where you're trying to bring people together. If I'm 6 Sense and I want to bring people together to an event in Austin, and I think I could attract actually a pretty big audience if I just layered the agenda with CMOs talking about information that was relevant to other CMOs. And we don't have to spend a day pitching 6 Sense products in that specific community effort. So let's say they invite 8 people from the CMO Coffee Talk community that maybe live in Austin or would be willing to travel to that event to speak on the agenda or be on a panel discussion as part of that agenda. You could attract a large audience if you were working at 6 Sense and field marketing to that. Mm-hmm. Now, what started in the community and the relationships and the trust that we've built there. And if they asked me to do that, would I do it? Of course, I would do it. These are friends of mine. I show up to that, but I know 6 Sense is running the event. They've got the invite list. Their marketing people are in the room. Their sales people are in the room as well. And they're the hosts of that event. We're creating that relationship. But as part of me showing up or the audience showing up, you're now moving this community relationship into a demand gen relationship because they want to gather that audience, right? So they're moving from the third orbit, community orbit, into a brand-led orbit that says our brand is really helpful and we're going to educate people. And by the way, on the coffee breaks or whatever in between or the happy hour after when 6 Sense people are around as the host, do you think 6 Sense is going to be talked about? Of course. Right. But that's a motion that doesn't have to start with, if they started with, hey, 6 Sense is going to be in Austin. We've got 5 speakers talking about 6 Sense and a couple of our customers. They're not going to get that much of an audience coming and participating in. And so it starts with these relationships in the community, and whether that's on LinkedIn and social channels or through events or these kind of community engagements where it's maybe harder to track the affinity of like, what's the value of gathering these people together and exchanging this? When you tie it into demand gen, and this happened to me all the time. Someone in the field marketing team would say, I'm hosting an event in Atlanta or London or Frankfurt or Sydney or whatever. Derek, do you know anyone? I'm like, I know tons of people because I work in the community. I've built these relationships. And I can ask a friend for a favor. But at the same time, if the field marketing person like, oh, you can get that really big name person to show up in the room, that would be great. Can they endorse our product or a company? Like, no, never. Right. That would never be part of the ask. Just them showing up and actually not charging us to show up or anything is just part of the relationship forming that's valuable in these efforts.
Yeah. I was going to say, Derek, let's face it, in the example you just gave us, the most valuable stuff that's happening is happening between the conference pitches, right? It's the water cooler conversation. That's the dark social stuff that's the most valuable that really this community allows us to get at, right? That's the difference.
it's very authentic in the community, like what started in the community. And again, if 6 Sense or any company like invited me, when I trust them in the community and I have those relationships, if they invite me to be part of something else that they're doing, I'm more likely to be in there. And the experience is going to be a lot better because of that, right? Yeah. You're going to get a lot more traction. You're going to get a lot more brand awareness. You're going to get a lot more leads within the community from these kind of efforts. And that shows how, like, yes, community needs to behave independently to keep the brand promise of that community and the trust of the people, but it doesn't have to operate always on this island. There are ways to link the orbits, and that's where marketing becomes really powerful.
Yeah. In your book, you talk a little bit about community activity, right? Like, it's different when you look at a community-led event versus a product-led event. Talk about the differences in the way you think about that metric, because I thought that was really valuable in the way you think about community activity on the community side versus product side. It's a little different, right?
Yeah. And again, within community and within product and brand, like, there's no strategy in this book to say drop product, drop brand, in the work that you're doing, or like don't do a product webinar, or don't do a company oriented city tour, roadshow, right? You have to do those things, but they have a limited reach within the audience. If you go back, going back to that Austin event, if you task me with that type of thing at a company, product led, I could, or brand led specific things, I could get 30 to 50 people in a room. Community led, I could get 250 to 300 people in a room, right? So I'm 10xing the audience on these kinds of engagements by working with the market itself and giving them information that's helpful. Laura Fitton, years ago, I heard this and I wrote it down. She's a former HubSpotter, said helpful is the new viral. And I think that part of kind of how you think about marketing and the approach to it is definitely better because of community. But some of the things I want to touch on, some of the metrics that I share in the book. Back in 2006, this guy Ben McConnell introduced this concept of like, how active are people on the internet? There's like lots of people coming to different sites on the internet, but there was this 99-1 metric that was 90% of the people are lurking or just viewing and gathering information. 9% maybe contributing something, like they're commenting on blogs or providing reviews on products online, like they're active in that way. And then 1% are really active, like they want to build content, share information. They're the creators in the market. In community, so Community Roundtable produced this great report in 2022 where they talk about the new metric around community engagement. And that looks like more like 55, 25, 20. 55% of the people are in a community, like observing. 20% of the people are contributing or are commenting and actively like sharing information. And then 20% are actually creating or sharing, like, I have knowledge, I'm contributing it here in the community. And I think if you look at CMO Coffee Talk, their CMO list, Pavilion, Rev Genius, others like personal like forums that I participate in, like I have a Yoder smoker for like doing barbecue out in the backyard. We have a forum online where we participate. There are a ton of people that are participating, creating content, sharing information, creating guides, or like, here's something helpful that I have. And the numbers are much higher in these communities. Kathleen Booth, who's at Pavilion, I asked her about, the 55, 25, 20 metric, and she said, yeah, it's very similar at Pavilion. That yes, you do have people that are just there in Slack and the workspace reading the information, but you have a ton of people saying, hey, I built this thing, I found it helpful, here it is. There's like one Slack channel is like CMO reading list, like what are you reading, an article, a book, or whatever that you share in, and like that kind of exchange and helpfulness. Or I'm looking for advice on something, can someone offer it? There's a lot of exchange in these communities, and there's value and trust built up in that. So it's very different than, like, if you think like your company blog where you're talking about your products and your company and your news and the updates, like how many people are in that active commenting, like, oh, this is great, like let me share my information. It's more of the kind of 99.1 experience versus the communities that just have this active information. And the thing about that activity is you can get so much of a better idea on your ICPs, who the personas are that you're selling to, what they care about, what they're talking about, what else they're dealing with in at their company, in their career, at home, across the board. And it can really better refine your approach to market when you study that. If you attract a community that has 5,000 people, like, do you know how you can better refine and target your audience through the digital channels that you're normally using, saying, I know this much more about the community because I can see more of it. Versus when you just talk about your products, you can only see a little part of the market itself. Versus when you're in the third orbit, you can see so much more, and data about those environments drives better marketing.
Yeah, as a member of a community, you really want those communities that get to that level, because when you have that level of interaction in the community, that's what makes it feel like a really valuable community to you as a member. On the flip side, right, as a marketer, that's also what makes marketers salivate. It's like, oh my God, there's so much good activity here. People are engaging in conversations. And so that's the part that draws the marketer in, and also makes it so tempting to, like, oh, can I talk about our product? Right. And you're like, no, that's not the right way to do it. Right. But you do make the point, which you just said, like even just a few minutes ago, it is important as a marketer to link your community-based activities back to your brand and product-led activities. So talk about that, if you will. Like, share with our listeners what is the right way to link community activities back to the more traditional marketing activities that are important for your business.
Yeah, there are a number of different ways to do that. And in the book, I share, I think, 4 sample playbooks that start in orbit 3, move to orbit 2, and then further move into orbit 1. And, some of this, we briefly talked about some of the examples before, but I could say, with All Day DevOps, one of the things that we did was, and actually not use All Day DevOps because I don't want to give away all the secret sauce of what we did there. But let's say that we're in this community overall, and we're in the CMO Coffee Talk community. We want to create a survey on marketing for our particular company because we sell marketing tools. Right. I could assign someone on my team to go off and create a survey and promote it to our list of people within that. And it will be okay. And it will probably be very vendor centric because marketing people like to think in the first 2 orbits, like, let's talk about the things that are most important to our company and our product and our brand. But the way that I would approach it was, let's find 5 people, maybe 8 people from the CMO Coffee Talk community, invite all of them in to build a survey for CMOs. What do you really care about? I want all different perspectives. I don't need anything about my product per se in here, but I want to learn about the market overall. The quality of the questions in that survey will be so much better than the ones you created by yourself. that survey starts with the community at large. When you go out and promote the survey, it's not a survey about my product and my company. It's, I want to learn about the market and the roles and the priorities of these people. And the community begins to share in the promotion of that. Like, we all want to know about that. We can then take information, we gather the information, we produce a community survey report and share that with the market overall. There are ways that you can share that, take work in the community, serve the community, and inform the community of CMOs and marketing professionals. Here's what the CMOs are thinking about. But you can provide access to the survey results and the survey report on your company website. If you want to put a form in front of it, maybe you do provide a form in some places in front of that. But you can also use that in a brand and communication strategy to say, we should go out and talk to press about the top priorities of CMOs in a marketplace so you can get more coverage from a PR standpoint. There may be people like Alec, you may decide, hey, we did this community survey together for CMOs. I want to go and speak at this upcoming B2B marketing conference. Can I present that information from the survey to that audience? Like, it's a community survey. We work together on it, right? Producing or sharing that information keeps you kind of in an orbit 3 level. But if I was at the company that helped organize that thing and I went out and spoke at a conference, I might be able to say, here's the information. By the way, if you have any more questions, I'm going to be at my company's booth on the trade show floor. Like, come by, have a conversation with us, right? And that gives me an opportunity to bring that person from the community into my lead gen or demand gen orbit. And then even asking people in the community to participate maybe in writing blogs, participating in a panel discussion on a webinar, and maybe that ties more closely into what's happening in the product and brand and demand-led orbits. But it's treating it with care that you're being helpful along the way, not overly promotional in a way that breaks the demand or the trust of those people. If I invite all these people to participate in a survey and they get the survey, and then the very next follow-up from this is, by the way, we have an awesome product and it's on sale at 50%, and I want you to all come and, sign up for the demo. It's going to be very awkward. It's like the bait and switch. You invited me to this friendly thing, but then you started selling me the very next day. You have to work on a playbook that kind of orchestrates people in a more human way of like how you want to be treated to move them from the outer orbits to the inner orbits. And not everyone in the outer orbit will work into the inner orbits. In campaigns that I've run before, if I had 1,000 people in the community orbit, there might only be 100 of those people that might even care about what my company or my product does that I could further nurture along into a stream. But you can't go out to the 1,000 and say, let me just talk to you about my company. You need to figure out, what do you know about this audience and the portion of it that might care about you that you can then more responsibly market to, where if I'm following up with you, you're like, yeah, of course, I do actually care about this stuff, versus not on my radar and I don't care, and why are you pitching me?
Yeah, and I think the 100 that you do get, those are going to be really high quality leads though, right? That's the thing. So
yeah. And part of that is because your initial touch with them, like the first touch point in marketing was a trusted relationship.
Right.
In a community versus like, I'm going to be more successful saying, Alec, what do you do for a living? Like, what are you working on? What are you interested in? Versus, Alec, I've got this great product. You need to come in and see it. Or Barb, like, come and hear my product pitch. You're not going to show up.
Yeah.
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 Thinking about a very direct example of this though, right? I mean, I would think that a very astute product developer would be listening with open ears to all the pain points of my community, right? This community that's talking about something, and may even tweak a product or develop a new angle to a product to address this community. I mean, that's the ultimate, payback on something like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even, in the thing like going back to a community survey, right? We go out and we survey marketing professionals and we figure out what they're doing, what their priorities are, and all of that. And let's say I have a product that is sold to marketing professionals. In that survey, I might find the thing that our product does and the value that it offers is like the number 4 priority for CMOs, right? And as part of that, I can learn about the market and what's happening there, but I can also tell our sales reps through the sales enablement programs that we're doing, hey, if you're going into this account and talking to these people, you should ask them about these 3 other priorities up front. Because if they haven't hit these 3, the chances of them getting to R4, right, is not high. So how do you better qualify accounts or look at, no, that's going to be a longer sales cycle. I'm going to look for greener pastures in order to sell. The data that comes from these communities that you can gather and the insights that you can gather from that can really impact how you build product, how you enable sales, how you better target digital, marketing efforts and demand gen efforts to be, more authentic, more on target, better informed. Where, if salespeople are like, how do you know this is going to work versus that's going to work? They're like, well, I'm coming with a lot of data behind the experience, right? And product people as well. If they look at, oh, our thing is actually number 4 on the list, maybe the thing that we need to build next is a number 3 priority or a number 2 priority to expand into that. Or maybe we need to go and make an acquisition in one of those spaces so that we can play earlier in the, potential, sales cycle or the market cycles. Yeah. Right. So yes, Barb, it's an excellent point about what you can learn in the community is so valuable of like where you sit and why you're relevant. And it's really that, going back to the outside in strategy, like you can spend all day talking about and promoting this product, hoping people will listen to it, or you can explore what's the market actually, what does the market actually care about and why are you relevant and how do you work on becoming more relevant in that space?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that marketers face is they think of community as way out here, right? And further from my product transaction sometimes. So let's finesse this conversation into the boardroom where we talk about ROI on this activity. Yeah. And because that's where people kind of get a little tripped up, right? They're trying to position, they know that this is a valuable initiative. The question is how do you demonstrate the ROI on it? And how do you convey that in terms of the other product-led stuff that they're doing in terms of budgeting? Where do I put it in the mix?
Yeah. So I think you treat, and I've treated community-led marketing efforts like I do product and brand-led efforts. So for the people leading communities, whether that was me or someone on my team, what's the activity that you're doing? What is the cost of that activity? How many leads did that activity generate within the pipeline? How many of those converted? And how much business did we win? And as a community marketer, you have to be able to understand that what you're doing plays into the bigger picture of what the business is trying to do. And if you can't do that personally as a community leader, you need to partner with someone else in the organization to provide that connective tissue. And sometimes that's the CMO that provides that connective tissue, because it's just like, the people that are super good at digital demand gen have no idea how to do product marketing. The people that are doing product marketing have no idea how to run a communication plan in the PR team, nor are they great designers for, the brand. And community is just another functional area within the business or within the marketing team. And sometimes it's the CMO or marketing leaders in the organization that have to integrate those things together. There's a guy that I've come to know in the community realm, David Spinks, who says you have to know that there's a golden rule around business, that they're all in business to make more money than they're spending, right? And when you think about community and investment there, it's being able to tie, we understand what we're doing and how what we did in the community is affecting demand and pipeline and results on deals that we're winning in the market. So you can take that as, yes, we led this community-led initiative, and here's the initiative, here's the cost, here's how many leads, here's the pipeline value, here's how many deals that we won from it. But at the same time, you need to make sure that credit is shared across the team, because when you're integrating orbits, and I create these relationships in the third orbit, and there's a field marketer that comes to me and says, I'm running an event in Atlanta. Derek, do you know anyone? And I say, actually, I have 3 really good friends in this space in Atlanta. Yes, I can call them up and see if they're available. And let's say 2 of them show up to that event. And that event has an audience 3 times larger than our events that don't have community participants. You can't go into your reporting and say, by the way, field marketing is absolutely killing it. They had 3 times as many people at this event in Atlanta, did great. We built relationships with these people that were there in the community and the audience, and we've generated X pipeline, without providing some attribution to say, why that event was better is because community was involved. So you can't kind of have the silos take credit for themselves. You have to look at it as this is an integrated marketing playbook where one group relies upon the other. It's like the people that are really good at promoting a webinar are not the people that are to attract the audience, or not the people that are speaking on it. It's like your product marketers are speaking on the webinar because they're talented and understand how to communicate to an audience. Do you give only the credit to the people that were promoting the webinar? No, it's like it's a team effort in that thing. So you have to look at it and I think apply the measures that way. But if you can't, going back to your question, Barb, if you can't relate something in the community to pipeline and demand, and it doesn't have to be 100% of what you're doing in community, but if there are not enough big chunks during the year that you can attribute down in that kind of measured way, you're probably not integrating the orbit. Your community lives on an island, and like there's someone running it, and everyone else in the marketing team is saying, what does that person do? I don't understand. Like, we're all trying to work with the sales team and generate pipeline and win deals and grow the business, and that person's like off doing stuff with their friends. That's where the model's wrong, and that's why I wrote the book, to talk about there are 3 orbits, and the best practice is to integrate the orbits together.
And I think basically that if you integrate it well, that also allows you to demonstrate the ROI, because you'll be able to explain that, hey, the reason our field marketing activities are really taking off, it's because of the community. The community has helped turbocharging that.
And I went to the board and said, okay, for every $1 that we invested, we got $250 of pipeline back. And got, X millions of dollars in sales. Like, I was doing that through community efforts that I was doing at various companies. And that makes it measurable where, my boss isn't wondering what are we doing? The CEO is not wondering, the board's not wondering, and they see the value of what it is. And I think for anyone that's running larger communities, they should be, reporting to the board directly on what the value of those investments are. And it doesn't have to be significant either. When I talk about investments in the book, the minimum to do community work, and I think really have a valid community work, is 1,000-hour commitment. Someone on your team's got to spend 1,000 hours a year in the community to make a difference and maybe provide a leadership role. When you get more formalized, the investment is maybe 5% of a marketing budget on average. It might get 10% in the more advanced community work that happens, but it's not like, hey, go and invest 75% of your marketing budget in community. This is going to be awesome. It's a piece. And because in the best communities, the people are joining in, the people are building the content, the people in the community are providing the information exchanges. You don't need a team of 100 people doing this. You need someone that's helping to facilitate the company or the community getting together and having these exchanges and making sure it's a safe place for people to gather and share that information and have those exchanges. The community will take care of building the content itself, just like with all-day DevOps. Like I said earlier, we didn't build 180 pieces of content. The community came every year and built those pieces of content for the community. We just provided the platform for them to find and share that information or exchange it with one another.
Yeah, that's a great closing comment, Derek. I like that, just bringing it all together. Thank you so much for sharing kind of this insight. I think the part about just explaining really that community can't be an island. If you're going to do this community-led marketing, it can't be an island. It's got to be tied into stuff. I know your book isn't out yet, but when it does come out, can you give us, our listeners, again, what's the title of the book? And then if they want to get in touch with you to engage more, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So again, it's Unfair Mindshare, a CMO's guide to community-led marketing in a product-led world. If you want to find out, I have a website, unfairmindshare.com. There's a link right at the top to the book. And if you go to that page, there's a little link where you can actually sign up. If you want an early copy or early notice that the book is coming out and available on Amazon, just sign up there and I will make sure to make sure that you know that the book is out and available for reading.
Oh, and I should also say, I believe, Derek, your company, Unfair Mindshare, advises growth stage companies and public companies on go-to-market strategies, also demand gen, brand, community-led efforts, et cetera. So you do that advising as well for folks, right?
Yep. Yeah, I have a happy audience of different companies that engage me to just look at and think about how to maybe change up their traditional marketing approaches to get bigger audiences. And, it's not all community-led stuff. That's just part of an overall marketing strategy. But yeah, it's a lot of fun and I enjoy those engagements a lot.
Well, you're a great storyteller. The book is a must read, Unfair Mindshare. So pick it up when it's ready. You won't want to miss it. Thanks again for the sneak preview.
Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Alec.
Thanks.